Good morning and welcome everyone to, oh my goodness, it's our December session on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Best Practice Forum for Members Only, Benefits of Membership. My name is Pam McElvain and I'm the CEO of P&L Group Holding Company, which has the brands Diversity MBA Media, Diversity Learning Solutions, and Diversity Benchmarking. I have with me today a very special treat for you guys. We have the Regional Vice President, Chief Diversity Officer for Atrium Health, Peggy Harris. So there's a few reasons why it's special to have Peggy Harris with us is because they are the 2022 #1 company, and they also are a Hall of Fame organization. And so we're going to talk a little bit about during this pandemic, during this, oh my goodness, social change, both justices, injustices, race relations, with all this stuff going on. How did you as you as a leader and an organization be able to continue to excel at the next level? So you're going to want to really be a part of every bit of this conversation this morning. So Peggy, I want to say welcome this morning, and how are you doing?
Good morning, Pam. Good morning, everyone. I am doing well. This has been a busy time of the year, lots of things going on, but we have to be resilient. And so I am doing well. I have no complaints. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And you're actually in the healthcare industry where you do not stop, you do not shut down. So, what do you do? Not just you and yes, first, what do you do for self-care? And then what do you do? What are some of the practices that you encourage your teammates to do for self-care?
Well, first, let me back up and just say in my role as Regional Chief Diversity Officer for the Greater Charlotte region of Atrium, as well as some of our regional facilities and Atrium Health Fluent locations. I have to give a plug for that.
Yes.
But I work closely with my team and helping them to be resilient, being able to bounce back and continue, I think is just so important to all of us. And as my leader often says, we have to pull on that discretionary energy, something deep down that you have to pull on sometimes when times get rough in order to make it to the next level. What we realize is that, we don't want to always be bouncing back and forth, but certainly self-care is so important. So being able to disconnect, being able to spend quality time with family, to understand priorities and certainly take care of the job and take care of the work, but realize that you cannot be of benefit to others if you're not well yourself. So I think that's just a strategy that I embrace personally, but I think as an organization, living well, taking care of oneself so that we can take care of others in the most effective manner, I think is just something that's embedded in our culture. And so really, it's not hard to do in the sense of planning, but of course, day-to-day take over and so many competing priorities that we just have to be very intentional, stop sometimes, pause, take that pause and say, I got to be good for me, my family, so then I can do well for my job and for the community that I serve.
And you know what, the trend that actually is the reality today is being intentional about self-care. It's becoming a part of the culture, a part of what a good organization encourages for folks. So thank you for sharing that. But before we go a little deeper, I just, want to acknowledge and recognize them, and let folks know you are one of the recipients of the highest honor, Pinnacle Award that Atrium gives. So congratulations. And can you share a little bit about the meaning and what it means to you to receive such an honor and recognition from your teammates?
Thank you, Pam, for acknowledging that. Pam's leadership team was in Charlotte, and my team here at locally surprised me with our Pinnacle Award. And that is the highest award that our teammates can receive for excellence in care delivery, excellence in the work that we do, excellence in performing the job well. And I was totally honored. I am still floating on cloud nine from that. I have been with our organization now for 28 years, and it is something that the organization have been giving out this honor for years and years and years. And it's seen as the best of the best. And so, as we always say, it's great I do the work because of the impact that it makes, but also it's great to be recognized by peers and those that you serve. And so for me, it's an extreme honor And I was also extremely honored that they chose to surprise me with it at the time that Diversity MBA was in the house. And so some of my peers and network members from across the country were also in attendance. So thank you, Pam, for being there and for supporting and allowing them to sort of sneak into the meeting and get that done.
Absolutely. And thank you for hosting. And what I love is being recognized for the leader that you demonstrate. And you definitely demonstrated for us as a partner to see it, but I'm sure, well, we absolutely know it's demonstrated every day. And so that's the kind of recognition and support that we hope to see in this world today. And with that, just share a little bit about your role. What is the work that you do, and how does that, how do you, what experiences that you also bring forward into this work,
So,
your current role?
yeah, yeah. So experience-wise, I have been in healthcare now for, I mentioned 28 years with Atriums, but so dating myself, but for a while. My background, I'm a nurse by training originally, but I haven't been in the clinical space now for lots of years. But this work as a regional diversity officer really allows me that patient and community contact that's really so important to me. But in my current role, I serve as a regional chief diversity officer here at Atrium, and it allows me to help shape cultures. Culture work is strategic work, it's impactful work, and I get to touch patients, our workforce, our teammates, our community, and our learners. So we have a diversity agenda that has those four pillars: patients, workforce, community, and learners, because those are all the focus areas that we have to lean into in order to help the organization move in the right direction. And I am just so pleased to be in an organization. You mentioned that we are your number one company this year, but so pleased to be in an organization where that is a priority at all levels of leadership. So making sure that diversity, equity, transformative equity, not just equity, but diversity, equity, inclusion, justice is embedded in the work that we do across all those domains. And so for me, it's a passion. And I'm just and the impact is obvious in what I do. And because I have been with the company for so long, I see the journey. I know where we started and I see where we are now. And so I can attest to the impact. I'm just not reading it based on somebody else's history and legacy. I have experienced it myself. So just in a great place. And I think it helps when I mentioned that discretionary energy that my leader talked about. That makes it easier to pull on that when you know
It
that the work
does.
that you are doing is truly making a difference.
It does. And what, Peggy, we're going to have to coin that. So you have to tell Eugene, we're getting ready to steal it and take it out there, because, that is it. Permission
Mhm.
to leverage that discretionary energy in a place that's going to allow you to, to hone what you
Yeah.
need to do to continue the excellence. I just, and everybody may not understand, a regional chief diversity officer, you laid out the strategy and the work you do. So I mean, does your role support this structure that
Mhm.
you guys have? Does that support the integration and alignment of all the pillars that you want to do? Because I know a lot of organizations struggle a bit with alignment,
Right.
leader-led,
Mhm.
integration, getting folks to be on the same page. So if you can share a little bit with us about how Atrium does that. But let me also say you're also in a unique role, not just because you've been at the organization for the length of time you've been, but because you actually you're experiencing, you're witnessing the transformation of a culture through changes, in the industry as well as in the marketplace, to see how DE&I is not only embedded, but accelerated, integrated, transformed, becoming a part of, people's own, their own DNA within the culture. And so you're unique, because I'm telling you, the average stay for chief diversity officer, that's another conversation, but it's about 3 years these days. So we're going to leverage, that uniqueness, but but congratulations too on that front, to being able to experience. So the question again, sorry, I tempered off there because I get excited when I talk to leaders like you, but the is, how in this role and the structure that you have, how do you guys assure alignment and get that level of buy-in from leaders, because that's where organizations tend to struggle when they're trying to, they've done their DEI strategy, they've got maybe the C-suite. Yes, let's go do this. And now it's time for execution. So
Great.
share with us a little bit about how you affect that.
A great question. And I'm going to pivot also and just go back briefly to your earlier comments about my tenure within the organization. I will say that my longevity also speaks to the culture. I would say that certainly you mentioned, that most diversity officers, come and it's not a long tenured position in most organizations. But I think the fact that I have been here for so long just speaks to the culture of the organization. So I think retention is very important. And so just pleased to be again in an organization where that is important. But from a structure perspective, and I won't go into that part of it, but just recently we experienced a combination. So we have grown as a company, but I'm speaking in terms now of the atrium from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, that area, the southeast part of the country, which has been our traditional structure. So our structure has been for the enterprise. And so under Fernando Little's leadership, we have created alignment across all of our regions so that we do have so I'm the regional chief diversity officer for the greater Charlotte region, which encompasses 12 or 13, so many hospitals, plus our regional hospitals, plus hospitals in one sector of Georgia. We also, Wake Forest is a part of which is in North Carolina, it's a part of our region, and we have a regional chief diversity officer there, and then one for our Navicent region. So that regional alignment is built in with Fernando, of course, being the enterprise chief diversity officer. So as that, we've been able to create a cohesive team where we come together to plan and to develop and to strategize for the entire organization, the current organization I'm speaking of. And with that, so we're very much in alignment. So I think some people say, it always has to start at the top. It can't never start at the bottom. I would say legacy-wise, everything didn't always start at the top. So we've had the experience of it starting at the bottom, starting in the middle, starting at the top. We are so blessed now, though, that is totally, is totally embedded into the strategy of the organization, from our most senior leaders through the ranks all the way through. So we're at a sweet spot, I think, organizationally. So how do we strategize D&I is at the table? I mean, when conversations, it's a strategic focus, just as health equity is a focus, just as quality is a focus, just as finance is a focus. We have goals, we have objectives, we have a budget, we have staff. And so there's expectation for impact and outcomes. We have to, it's not necessarily having to quantify return on investment in a way that's different from any other department or area of the organization. Just as finance, just as quality, just as others have to show their value, we show our value as well. So we're not a set aside, we're fully integrated. It's a horizontal and built into the work that we do. And because we have so much support, I would say from a senior leader perspective, starting with our CEO and coming through our EVPs and coming all the way down, the challenge is not to get in front of leaders to share the information. It is certainly helping them to understand how then because we provide cultural competence and expertise in this space. Our role has been to help our leaders determine what should some of the goals and metrics be. How can I achieve that? Is there education that I need? What strategies are there that I'm not thinking about? So I think we bring that to the table, but I do think that leaders across the organization, if you were to drop in and just ask them about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they could articulate how it is embedded in the work they do, from IS to finance to nursing to physician, whatever those areas are. And so that's, I think, something that we have recognized the most impact in, that D&I is not a set aside. It's not a standalone. It's not something that's in this silo here and everybody's doing work over there. It is fully integrated within the org. There's still work to be done, so don't get me wrong.
Yes.
There's always work to be done. And we're always thinking of what's missing. What are the contemporary issues that we need to be dealing with, that we need to be managing, that we need to be providing support and leverage for our leaders and for our teammates. But with that being said, we are in a great space.
Thank you for that. So, I mean, well, one more question before we move from this. So ESG, environmental sustainability and governance, is now becoming the thing. that DEI has to be integrated and has the influence. Not to say that it hasn't in a long time, but now, Bloomberg and the indexes are uplifting it. Like, okay, great, that's good to see that. But in an organization, and I love this, that that's vertical and being able to, horizontal and not operating in a vertical level that DEI tends to get put in. Let me see what I want to say. Do you guys, do the same types of integration and inclusion and conversation so that DEI has the influence in the ESG areas and for sustainability, governments, and where you have impact in the community? Are you at the table? And if so, and if yes, how are you at the table? I think this becomes a lesson, for many that are trying to figure out how to begin to develop these relationships within their own organization.
Yeah, I would say that our governance levels at Atrium is our boards are very diverse, just put it that way. And I think there's intentional thinking around the makeup of the boards to ensure that we have the right people at the table, the right community engagement, the right community involvement. And our board is very supportive of the work that we do. And there are committees on the board that speak specifically to diversity and health equity. And so I think it's totally embedded at the most senior levels of governance and leadership throughout the organization. So again, that just puts us in a great place to do our work. We don't have the hindrance of trying to educate and pull them in. They're already there, and asking if we need to provide information, if we need to provide support. Of course, we are there to do that. But I'm just proud to say DE&I, the staff DE&I, we do not have to lead our board or our leadership in this space. They are already there and working in collaboration with the work that we are doing and others who sit in similar spaces across the organization. Because again, it's not just the DEI function, there's community and social impact function, there's health equity. So we have lots and lots of partners who are doing this work, all at very senior levels of the organization. So we're just partnering to get it done.
See that, and that's just incredible because, and it's probably just because it's just so, clearly stated and directed that this is who we are and how we will be. And so when folks in legal and in treasury and finance and like you said before in IS, and they're thinking about how do we do these things, they know they can just tap into you and you're going to bring that perspective to help get this done. And so, it's like, why are we struggling? What are we afraid of? So let me just shift real quickly and ask, in a culture that is so strong and mature like yours, when you do have, what are some of the things and ways that you engage managers that might not be, or new people coming into the organization that might not be as comfortable, with being open and, moving forward with, accepting differences and not to say that you're judging people, but you may have folks there that still haven't, like you said, there's the work to do that still has to come along. What advice and what work have you guys done to bring those folks along? How, because that's real, and in large organizations that's going to happen. But to hear how you guys have sustained it and moved it forward, the people side is really critical.
I love that question as well, but also I keep wanting to go back, Pam. You keep asking these provocative questions, and I just want to say one additional thing about the governance, senior leadership. One strategy that we have used is, and I know most organizations have employee resource groups or system resource groups, we call them, and they have executive sponsors. But one strategy I think that's been super impactful for us is that most, if not all, of our senior executives at that EVP level are an executive sponsor for one of our resource groups. So
I'm going to say, okay.
You have the senior executive of a strategy who is embedded in a resource group. You have that, just whatever the areas are. So those areas like strategy, like finance, like, IS, they are embedded in that work. And when they get totally involved, you can't help but that proliferates and that trickles down to all the people that they represent and that they support. And so again, just another way of it's not getting buy-in, but when they're involved in the work, they're involved in the work. But to your question of ways that I think if I understood you correctly, How do we engage perhaps teammates where some of these topics, these D&I topics are sensitive? Maybe they didn't bring that with them. So we try to be intentional. We are intentional and try to be strategic from onboarding on. So of course, over the course of the pandemic, we went from in-person onboarding to virtual, and now we're probably, I don't know where we're going now. I think we're figuring it out now, but it's probably some kind of hybrid. But historically, D&I has been at the table from the very first day of onboarding. When it was in person, we would get in front of our new teammates and have conversation. What is D&I for HM Health? How do we communicate? How do we relate? How do we create spaces where we all belong? How do we create a space where we meet you where you are, but there's this respect that has to be permeated throughout the organization. And even in that virtual environment, in those virtual spaces, that's continued. But so we do help our teammates to understand that our goal is to meet them where they are, wherever that is, in a non-threatening environment. But we do have some goals and objectives for the company. So we have to, if you're far back, we want to move you along. So we're not going to stay back there with you. We will meet you where you are and bring you along. And we'll do it in a supportive, I use the word loving, but I guess that's not an organizational word. That's more of a familiar word, but in a very supportive and respectful way, we'll bring you along. And we have had few, if any, areas where that is not the case, where people are brought along. But I would say when we do find that there are needs, we address them. We have to stand courageous. We have to be willing to lean in, again, in a supportive and non-confrontational manner. But culturally, there are certain things that are acceptable and certain things that are not. And if it's not acceptable, we have to let you know that, in order to be a part of this HM family, we need you to move along. And so we're at different places in that space, honestly, in different areas. But from our Office of D&I and from our leader perspective, I think leaders understand that it is their role to lead and to address those issues. And if we in the space of D&I need to help support that, we can. We don't take on the role of D&I police. So our office, we're an office like other offices across the organization with goals and strategies and work to be done. But that is a resource that we offer if we need to coach, we need to mentor, we need to support and helping leaders understand what tools and resources may need to be shared with certain teammates in order to get them to move forward. We certainly are here for that. But leaders own that themselves, and they reach out to us when they need support. If there are certain teammates who are not, or pockets where there are issues. So culturally, I think by and large, we set the tone and we have cultural commitments to say we're going to create a place where we all belong, that we want people to bring their innovation to the table, that we strive for excellence and we do it as a team. And so when we talk about living those cultural commitments, living our mission of health, hope, and healing, that does not jive with certain behaviors. And so hopefully when teammates become a part of the organization, they understand what they're getting into. And but if they don't, we're here for that support. I hope that answered your question, because I think I'm rambling.
Oh, no, you're not. No. In fact, that is so, I was just like, oh my goodness, the nuggets are just tremendous, because that's the kind of, I think, authenticity and direction and like you used the words like courageous and maybe not loving but nurturing in the environment, and then having to confront and deal with the zero tolerance kinds of things. And I think that's what organizations need to hear, is like, here's what we're building, this is what we have, and if you're going to be a part of this, yes, we want you to be yourself, and we're going to do what we can to help you and give you the tools. But you said at the end of the day, if you don't want to do this, then back to industry, good luck with that. But kidding with that. But but I think that's what, and that's what makes you guys a leading organization, because I do believe that's what people need to hear. They need to know what happens, because there are folks that don't want to. That's just the reality. There are whatever political, whatever reasons, they're there, and how organizations steadfast on that. So thank you for that. Those were very good nuggets. And this is a different question, but as a leader, you have a leader that is leading in the industry with recognitions and thought leadership and just vision and everything. That's your CEO and the folks around them. So so Adrian is not just number one on our list, but Atrium is one of the top leading integrated systems in the nation. And so do you guys feel that you have a responsibility um, to help the industry move forward? How do you, and I know this is out there, but this in your opinion, how do you see, too much is, who said too much is given, much is respected,
All right.
much is required. How do you see Atrium leading the way in some of these innovative, very successful strategies that you've been able to execute on?
Yeah, I definitely subscribe to that to he whom much has been given, much is required. And I think, and I don't know that we would use that as a necessarily as a tagline, but I do see that being exhibited by our leadership. You will notice that you see our leadership, our leaders in all kinds of spaces, and they don't stutter and they don't stammer when they talk about health equity and the need to address the drivers of health and what we can do from a community perspective to bring community along, how important supply diversity is, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, I'm in DC right now today, just finished my tenure as the chair of the Institute for Diversity and Health Equity of the American Hospital Association. So again, which is a national group that certainly helped to shape strategy for the field in that area. And that's just a personal, not a personal plug, but just what so I see in that way, but you see our leaders in those spaces across the organization and totally are willing to share any leading edge. We learn from others and we don't mind sharing what we know, because I think as we advance equity, advance justice, advance those things that help to improve the health and wellness of our communities and just the wellness of our communities in general, when we do it for the people that we serve, and if we can share that with others, it only helps us as a humanity, And so I do believe that we do try and role model best behavior in this space. And then if we find that we are not leading in some spaces, we don't hesitate to embrace new ideas and new innovation, because it doesn't all have to come from us. We certainly can embrace what others learn. And so that is something I think that's a part of who we are as an organization as well, not just in this DE&I and equity kind of space, but I think just in general.
Thank you for that very specific example. No, it's not a plug. I mean, that has been your tenure, because in the associations, that is where organizations like yours with the level, influence change.
Mhm.
Is, and being, and then like you said, you're across those roles and throughout the country and disciplines. That's really significant. So thank you for sharing that. And as voice to power, that I've been told before, women always apologize for their power. So I tell you, don't apologize for that power. You're just there with that power.
Point well received.
And we're telling everybody out there, come on, okay, girls, as they say, girl power. So just to shift a bit, wanted to ask about, we know that within the work that we're doing, and I don't know how or if Atrium has found that with the I know you're doing a great job on the retention of talent, but just hearing like the silent quitting, the great resignation, and what the healthcare industry as a whole is dealing with. First question, are you guys dealing with a talent crunch like that? And if you are feeling it, how are you managing it? What are you doing to create pipelines for sustainability that you always have to do regardless what the market is doing? But just with so much change going on in the talent pipelines and development and access to talent, what have you guys uniquely decided to do to help, combat this and keep your organization in leading in the front in terms of talent?
That's another excellent question, Pamela. I would say that I have to give a shout out and say that we have awesome leaders in the talent acquisition space, and who are forward thinking, who are making significant impact, and who are day to day, are making great inroads to bringing in the best and brightest talent to the organization. I would say that, and so D&I doesn't lead that, but we certainly collaborate and participate. So some of the tangential things that D&I does to sort of support our talent acquisition work. Is, and we're a large organization, so there are, thousands of hires on the reg, so that kind of thing. But in the space of D&I, we've provided resources and tools to support leaders as well as our talent leaders, inclusive hiring toolkits to ensure that leaders understand what inclusive hiring look like. So some of those barriers that may have prevented certain talent from getting the position, we may be thinking about the biases that may go into that. And so leaders and interview panels are expected to take their educational courses that are included in this inclusive hiring toolkit, so that we're asking questions that are really relevant and pertinent to the role, not to the personality or whatever those things are. And so I would say the body of work that Dr. Jackie Apollo, who is our Regional Chief Diversity Officer in the Wake Region and VP of Talent, Diverse Talent Practices, has helped to develop, has been instrumental, was rolled out last year, in fact, and has been instrumental, I think, in helping our teams and partners across the organization to be more inclusive, more thoughtful. I mean, because I don't think they ever thought they were not inclusive, but to be more thoughtful about how certain questions may, or those kinds of things. But then in addition to that, we have been thoughtful and strategic over the course of the last year about developing some targeted pipeline groups. We have a group that we have launched recently, a cohort that we call Aspire, which is for female leaders of color, to try to give them opportunities for exposure education and to elevate them within the organization. We have another group in the pipeline, again, very similar group, that we're looking specifically at getting sponsors to have them be known as the on deck for future opportunities when it comes to elevation. And then we're looking at, other opportunities within the community. So everything's on the table, I think, when it comes to being thoughtful and strategic. I think our talent acquisition leadership team has it when it comes to, what we need to do to be recruiting in the right places, making the right overtures to HBCUs and other organizations from a diversity perspective. They're doing a phenomenal job. And I think, no doubt, Atrium, just like other organizations, have experienced some of the same crunch, especially in healthcare. And I mentioned I'm a nurse by background, so, tough space to be in sometimes. And this COVID pandemic era, I know there's no doubt that we have experienced what other organizations have, but our talent leaders are doing a phenomenal job of getting our talent back where it needs to be and attracting new talent. And then I think the collaboration in the space of D&I has been very impactful and thoughtful, so that where the other pockets that we can be looking that perhaps we haven't looked before. They're open to that exchange. But then also, once we get our teammates in, inclusive hiring and then creating that space where we belong, cultural issues that may be coming up, we help to support our leaders in that space. So I think overall we're doing well, but no doubt, there's always opportunity.
Oh my goodness, can you believe we're at the hour? Oh my goodness, that is so rich in sharing with us in terms of what the next level is. I just like to ask, what advice would you like to give those leaders out there that are championing this work in looking at their next as we wrap up?
I think my advice would be to don't give up, to recognize that incremental change is change. Can't move mountains immediately. And that's really, you can do what you can do, but certainly don't let one no turn you away. I think in the space of equity, I think we know that it took us a long time as a nation to get to where we are. And it's going to take us a long time to transcend and get beyond. So just keep plugging away, pull on that discretionary energy that I mentioned that my leaders are always talking about, so that you can keep moving forward. Again, incremental change is change. So don't be hesitant to accept that incremental change.
Thank you, Ms. Peggy Harris, Regional Chief Diversity Officer for Atrium Health, Diversity MBA's #1 company, and Hall of Fame inductee. So thank you so much for this incredible opportunity.
Thank you, my pleasure.